Do I have to start it over or just pick up?
Could you start over, please?
Okay, since you said please. I would like to call the City of Kyle Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please? Deb?
Scheibmeier,
Here, here.
Carol, McCall.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm trying to get on my computer right now.
Christy,
Here.
Kiara,
Here.
Boss,
Here.
James.
Here.
Item number 3 is citizens' comments. Citizens' comments tonight is for those who wish to speak on items that do not have a public hearing. Anyone here online, or have you received, Deb or Howard, have you received or will any requests or anything that has to be read in to the minutes for a citizen comment on items other than public hearing items?
Not for citizen comments.
I have
Okay,
not
Howard.
received anything that won't be administered directly.
Okay. Is there anyone on the phone who is not speaking to an item that is on the agenda that has a public hearing? Okay, not seeing anyone. I will close citizens' comments for this evening. Item number 4 is our consent agenda. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, and that's it. So you know what I'm looking for.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve consent agenda items A through F.
I have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, consider and possible action. Consider a request to construct a car wash with associated covered parking areas to detail vehicles and a dumpster enclosure for property located at 18900 IH35, approximately 600 feet south of the intersection of IH35 and Kyle Crossing in front of Home Depot, within the I-35 overlay district. Suds Deluxe Car Wash, CUP 21-0028. Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you. All right. Will Atkinson for the record, city planner. Before you, we have the conditional use permit to construct the Suds Car Wash. As most of y'all know, a conditional use permit in this particular case is not a use question. It is just the name of the permit, and it's really an aesthetics question. Whenever someone in the I-35 overlay wants to build a commercial structure, they have to come forward to us to make sure that it's, for all intents and purposes, pretty enough. And we follow section 53-99, part of the I-35 overlay, to make sure it meets those standards. And I personally work with the architect going back and forth before we bring it to y'all. All right, so that being said, let me staff memo real quick and share that. Okay. All right, so as previously stated, this site's about 600 feet south of Kohler. I personally work with the architect going back and forth before we bring it to you. All right, so that being said, let me
Someone who is in the meeting is talking on their phone, and they need to mute.
There's a participant on the call this evening that doesn't have their microphone muted. If everybody is not actively speaking, if you could mute your microphone, it'll take care of
that. I think it worked this time. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. This site is about 600 feet south of Kyle Crossing and the IH-35 frontage road. in front of Home Depot. You can see on the location. The subdivision improvements for the Endeavor Kyle Crossing or Kyle Town Center project, the shopping center. You can see them doing some dirt work here. When we're looking at this, we're making sure that it's appropriate from the I-35 overlay in section 53896 and 899. The biggest thing is it meet and actually exceeds the requirements for the I-35 overlay and the retail services zoning district. They have a minimum of 90% masonry on all four sides. They have a unique color combination. And we don't have anything to say that it doesn't meet standards. It's compliant. They went a little bit above and beyond, and we recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve this permit. But let me go ahead and pull up the pictures of it real quick, just so for the record. Hold on. All right. All right, so here is the elevations showing the main building and what have you, and also the canopies where they're going to have them, and also the dumpster enclosures. So a lot of it's a ceramic tile. I did talk with the architect, and it is considered masonry. They have some CMU as well, concrete masonry units, but it's split faced, and they have a little bit of burnished metal on here. It does meet the doors, the roll-up doors have the glass segmented panels like is required in the I-35 overlay. I'm going to stop sharing that and then show you some renderings as well. Okay, so here's the exit for it when you're coming out of it. Here's another view of that.
Will,
Here we go.
is the
Yes.
exit facing the highway or is it facing Home Depot? Just curious.
I have to pull up the site plan. I believe it faces the highway. They did provide some corrections at the last minute. So it may be that they flipped it around, but it's mostly based on the entrance and the exit canopies that they've changed some stuff. Okay. Let me pull the site plan. All right, so I don't know if y'all can see that. Zooming in a bit. It looks like in this picture, the exit faces the highway, because you got two lanes going in, and you go in and then come out.
Right. Is that the dumpster enclosure right closest to the highway there? The U-shaped thing? Right there. You just hovered over it. No, the other one.
I can't. It's one of these two on the landscape plan, but it's not labeled as such. It would be on the dimensional control sheet, which we didn't add on there.
Okay. It seemed like we'd want to put those in the back away from the highway. But there's nothing in the I-35 overlay that speaks to that.
I'd have to do some research. Offhand, I'm sure. Would you like me to look it up?
Yeah, if you could.
Okay.
Sorry for not being clear. Yeah.
Was
And it
in
may
the
be a-
elevations? The
Go ahead.
dumpster enclosure, was it in the elevations? Or just on the
It
plan?
was. It was shown in the elevations, but the elevations don't show. They don't show it where it'd be on the plan, except the plan shows it itself. So,
Mr. Atkinson, this is Shahan Bainani, the applicant. I can provide some clarification on the dumpster location, if that's okay.
yeah, by all means.
So the dumpster location actually is in the back, and I think Mr. Atkinson, the site plan that you have seems to be an older version. So if you recall, we actually flipped the orientation of the site. So the exit canopy does face the I-35, but the dumpster is in the back of the property.
Okay.
Excellent.
Is it possible that we could lay eyes on the latest site plan rather than make decisions from the one that we have tonight? That's not the latest one.
I will. There's been a lot of updates with the Endeavor stuff as stuff comes in, so I will see if I can find that real quick. The Endeavor dimensional control sheets and everything, it's a massive file, so it takes a long time to load. But I will try.
Mr. Atkins, I'm happy to just email it to you very quickly if that's helpful.
Yes, please. If you have a dimensional control sheet showing that.
Yep, I'm going to send that over to you right now.
Okay. And my apologies, commissioners. I didn't realize I had the wrong sheet on there.
It's on its way to you.
Okay. There we go. All right, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This makes more sense. Okay. So yeah, so the entrance is over here on the left. You go in and the entrance to the building is right here. The exit's right here. And there is the dumpster enclosure.
Looks good.
Okay. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions or comments?
Anyone? Okay. If there are no questions or comments, are we going to consider a possible action here?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve agenda item 5A as written.
I have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and lots of seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, zoning. 6A, consider a request by FM 158 Land LTD to assign original zoning to approximately 66.245 acres of land from Agriculture AG to Warehouse District W for property located at 24801 IH 35 in Hayes County, Texas. This item has a public hearing. I'm going to open this public hearing. Is there anyone on the line who wishes to speak to item 6A? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you, we have a petition number Z20-0071. It is a petition to rezone approximately 66.25 acres from agriculture to warehouse. And you can see in the image right here in the location map, it wraps around what used to be the old racetrack property that's zoned warehouse right now. And it's wedged between that, Quail Ridge Drive, and then the quarry to the southeast. It is currently zoned ag, as previously stated. Property to the west is largely zoned W. There is some ag a little bit to the northwest. Quail Ridge is a residential subdivision for manufactured homes, zone M2. And everything to the southeast is actually in the San Marcos ETJ. So it's not zoned. It's not in our jurisdiction. Warehouse uses are those primarily to serve other commercial and industrial enterprises, and usually don't have uses that are included in construction and manufacturing, but they do have a little bit. But any of the uses in CBD1, CBD2, RS, and W are allowed. From the comp plan, this site is, with the exception of the most westerly little bit of a corner, is in the new settlement district, and the warehouse zoning district, it can be considered a new settlement. It's allowed. In a nutshell, the new settlement community, it largely focuses on residential uses, mostly between a large portion of them are along FM 150 East, a little ways to the north of there, between that and County Road 158. And so it places a heavy emphasis on residential. However, about 3 or 4 years ago, in the 2017 update to our comp plan, we did add W, or warehouse, as a conditional zoning, because we felt like there might be some places in the new settlement where it would be appropriate to have warehouse uses. This site primarily being a good example of that. With the exception of the Quail Ridge community to the north, most of the uses around this property are industrial in nature or undeveloped. From a buffering standpoint, adjacent to the Quail Ridge property, when the site does develop, each pad will have to build some substantial fencing that's solid. They will have to have some buffer to comply, to help kind of provide a nice buffer between them and the residential uses. It is near I-35 and Yarrington Road. It's a significant intersection coming in from the south coming in from San Marcos, but it has sufficient access to the interstate, which is for warehouse uses, because they have a lot of logistic type stuff going on when it comes to tractor trailers and all that. They've done the ramp reversals. The access roads are brought up to code. They will have to comply with all of our subdivision codes. They'll have to comply with our site development codes. building permit standards. And if it falls within the I-35 overlay, then they'll have to comply with that as well. We don't really have any objection to the request. It seems like it's a good fit for the area. And we ask that y'all vote to consider this in a positive manner. Do you have any questions for me?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
If a small portion of it is within the I-35 overlay, does that force the entire development to comply with the I-35 overlay, or do they just have to put a facade that's up to the perimeter limit?
If it's a lot that intersects with the I-35 overlay, that particular pad has to comply. Sometimes different properties, the property lines don't intersect with it. We're seeing that with the HPI, the Hayes Commerce Center on the north end of town, where they have the logistics center, the FedEx facility and all that. By and large, the I-35 overlay runs along Vista Ridge Drive, and everything to the west of that doesn't have to be part of that. But everything to the east of it, closer to I-35, does have to go through the conditional use permit for I-35 aesthetics.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atkinson.
It's my pleasure.
All right, I'm waiting.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve item 6A as written.
I have a motion. I have a motion on the floor in the second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sir.
Yeah, I do agree. I am in support of this. I would typically be wary of any warehouse district in the new settlement, but I think where it is, this is a good reason to have conditional uses. It does make sense where it is. If it was along the 150, I wouldn't agree with it, but where this is, even though it's a new settlement, I do think it's a good fit.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
was the applicant here to talk about the use at all, or no?
I don't know.
Yeah, hi, if I may speak up. I'm Ben Green. I'm the agent authorized. I'm the engineer working with the client on this one. I'm from Kimley Horn. And Will, thank you for that great summary. I'm here to answer any potential questions you guys may have. There's not a particular use in mind so far. The client is just looking for the rezoning to match the adjacent parcel, which is that racetrack, to create one larger track that would eventually be developed. And yeah, happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Anyone have any questions?
That actually kind of answered it. I was just curious if they had a use in mind. That sounds actually pretty interesting. They're joining it with the adjacent track.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 6B, consider a request by WS Live Oak Kyle, LLC, Z210072 to rezone approximately 14.08 acres of land from single-family 1 R1 to Townhome District R-1-T for property located at the north corner of Live Oak Street and St. Anthony's Drive in Hayes County, Texas. There is a public hearing for this item. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this. I'm guessing I have more than one speaker for the public hearing. And I wanted, Deb, is there any way we can do this in order? Like, how do we do this? Deb, you're on mute. Deb, you're on.
Here I am. Just to open up the public hearing, and
I just did.
believe we just had that one. Mr. Dean, I believe. Be on the phone?
Is anyone here for this item 6B? Hello? No one?
You're looking
this is-
for,
I see a lot of names, so.
the gentleman's name is Dean Brady. Is there a Mr. Brady on the line?
Mr. Brady, are you here?
Not that I'm aware of.
Just lots of names and I can't, ugh.
Is there anybody else that's on the call this evening that wants to speak related to this issue?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I have before me, oh, all right, wait. No, I don't want to close public hearing. I have before me two statements from two residents. One is a Kevin Villalba, and he is not in favor of it. He said the last time this was proposed, there were no plans to show exactly what was going to be built. He's looking for plans, and there was also no infrastructure to support the new buildings, roads, water, sewer, etc. And he wants to know if anything's changed. There's also Judy McLary. She's not in favor. Both of these people live in the area. They live in a quiet one-story home where owls hoot, and with occasional opossum, raccoon, and deer. Houses would cut down the trees and destroy it. I also received a letter from Richard Wendt. He lives on Live Oak Street. He has issues with the existing congestion that's already on Live Oak and what will come from additional cars and homes being placed in that area. And what else? That there is an R-1-T zone, but it's not being used right now. Overall, his concerns were for the congestion and the overall development in the area. He is not in favor of the zoning. That is all I have. Is there anyone else to speak in the public hearing for this item? Okay, I will close the public hearing for this item. Mr. Atkinson.
All right, Will Atkinson for the record, city planner. Before you, we have petition number Z21-0072. They're wanting to rezone a little over 14 acres that's zoned R1 single family. They want to rezone it to R1T, which is townhomes. And let me share the screen. All right, here we go. So here's the vicinity map right here. To the north, you have Silverado, which is also zoned R1, single family detached. There's a little bit of warehouse uses to the southwest, a scattering of duplex zoning and R1A right here to the south, and a little bit of other R1 that's been pre-existing from the original city of Kyle boundary. And then the Catholic Church right here, just to the east. And right here, you can see the zoning, kind of matching what I just said. A little bit commercial over there along FM 150 West. All right, so the R1 zoning district was created in ordinance number 92 in 1978, and it's the single family residential zoning district before we revised everything in 2003. There's just a lot of parcels in the city that were never rezoned from R1. I'm looking at roughly about 6 units per buildable acre, 6,000 square foot lot minimum. It's a pretty standard R1 residential. They're wanting to rezone it to R-1-T, which is townhomes. That is a minimum per building of 4 attached single-family residences side by side, not stacked like multifamily or apartments, if you will. You have to have a minimum of 1,000 square feet, and you're looking at around 10 units per buildable acre, an increase in density, if you will. The comprehensive plan, the site is split by both the historic core area, transition area, and the Midtown community. They both can be considered in each one of these zoning or one of these land use districts, but they are conditional. They're not necessarily recommended. The Midtown is more of a suburban idea from a residential standpoint. You're looking at more curvilinear streets, if you will, more standard subdivision kind of ideas, with a heavy focus on residential. The historic core area has a more of a grid pattern from a streetscape, and everything. A lot of stuff's defined by that. And you have where there's sidewalks, you have a lot of ways to get to downtown relatively quickly. It's kind of a middle landscape between the Midtown area and the original core of Kyle, but it potentially a natural extension of it, if you will. So just as a side note, well, not even a side note, we understand the residents' concerns, especially those who have spoken up and submitted documents that aren't in support of it. We understand that some of the infrastructure in the area is not up to code. But sometimes the city doesn't have an infinite amount of money. And sometimes it takes a development project to help improve a little bit of that the infrastructure that is lacking in the area. And that's part of the reason why we are in support of this. From a road infrastructure standpoint, in the northeast portion of this parcel, Montera Drive from Silverado stubs out into this property. A year or two ago, the transportation master plan is updated, stating pretty much that Montera Drive will eventually have to keep going all the way through and intersect with FM 150 West and Gregg Road. To make a future connection point and better connectivity from a vehicular standpoint. This project will have to build the section that's internal to the site. We don't have transportation impact analysis built into our code, so we can't require more than that. But we are making them do what they have to do to make the site be up to par. They will be building sidewalks around the perimeter of their property where they hook up with the public right of way. They're also going to be having to replace a significant length of wastewater line that goes down Live Oak and St. Anthony's Drive. And they are aware of this. There's going to be a significant amount of improvements made. It's not going to be as much as everybody wants, because it never is, but they do know that. And that's why they're asking for an increase partially to townhomes from a density standpoint, because the cost of the upgraded infrastructure that goes offsite makes it extremely difficult to make this project successful whenever you keep it at the R1 standard at 6 units per buildable acre instead of 10. On the flip side of that, the townhome idea from a housing standpoint, it's a kind of an in-between pattern in terms of a step-up product whenever you're moving along in life. Maybe you've graduated college and you've been living in an apartment complex renting. Well, you may find when you start looking around, if you want to start buying a residence or looking at doing that a single-family detached house is too expensive for you. Maybe you're not that far along in your career where you can afford that. But you look at a townhome, and it might be a little bit more affordable and make it within reach. Typically, they're for smaller families, maybe a husband, wife, a kid, maybe 2 kids, but a smaller family. But we don't have a lot of this kind of in-between housing in the city of Kyle. And we need it, frankly. As everybody probably understands, there is such a high demand for housing right now. It is ridiculous. And so anytime we can improve more housing, we should, as long as it's appropriate to do so. And it's just appropriate. There's a lot of reasons why this will make this property better. Right now, historically, it's been a dump site. I believe there was at least one fire on there at one point. So that's what that is. R-1-T, we believe it's appropriate. It'll improve the neighborhood. It's a good product to have. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Atkinson? None, huh? Okay. Okay.
I have
can
one question. Sorry.
Go for it.
I know that we're just looking at zoning right now. We're not looking at what would actually proposed or would be proposed there. But did you say it was 10 units per buildable acre? Do you know about how many that is? If there's, I mean, because it's not all going to be.
No, that's a net density. So if you just take the gross density of it, I mean, you're looking at 180 to 200 units, but it's going to be less than that because you have to account for the streetscape, detention, sidewalks.
This parcel is 14 acres. So
right.
This part,
well, if you include the other R-1-T as
140
well.
gross. Yeah. But Will's right. By the time you subtract areas that just won't possibly be able to be built upon, there's basic infrastructure that's going to take up area of this lot. Streets, stormwater detention, sidewalks, setbacks, things like that are going to take away area. So it'll be less than that. We know for sure what the maximum will be because that's the cap, and then it works backwards from there. But R-1-T is one of the unique zoning categories that we can actually discuss the project after the fact. Typically, when we talk about zonings, we don't like to specifically mention land uses or get into things like site plans or building specifications. We just talk about the use, highest and best use of that parcel and whether or not the request is reasonable in light of the expectation of what's permissible today as is, or if the request does create an allowance for a higher and better use. R-1-T is one of those unique districts where we can actually talk about the end use because there's only one permissible use. It's residential, it's single family attached in a townhome structure, which we narrowly prescribe as 4 or more dwelling units in a single structure. So we know what's going to be built there if it's approved. From that point forward, you can start to work backwards on what the expectation is. And Will was correct. There will be a number of improvements made to the site just as a basic function of development. So there'll be mass grading and fine grading that will go towards mostly creating pad sites, but in a responsible way so that the stormwater can be captured and released at the pre-development levels. It has been historically underutilized. This area of the city has historic deficiencies in wastewater service through fault of no one, just as a function of time and a necessity for maintenance in its operation. The introduction of this site will improve that because we will not be able to let it move forward until the requisite system improvements are made. Additionally, the transportation network, the city of Kyle has a future transportation map, which is very similar to our future land use map. And it shows that there are some connections that need to be made from existing subdivisions to existing corridors like connectors and collectors. This project will be one more increment towards getting those connections made so that there are more opportunities for traffic to move through Kyle and not bottlenecking them all into the usual corridors that we have today. So Will's correct. Just at its basic, the development of these acres back there, which have been historically vacant, unutilized, some nuisance utilization back there with what you mentioned, the dumping and the brush fires. So Kyle staff has looked at this as it relates to its surroundings, proximity to the downtown, proximity to schools and parks, the post office, and the expectation that as we get closer to our activity centers, which would be our higher density downtown, we should be looking at increasing residential density, and without necessarily tying those people to their automobiles.
Thank you. I think it seems very appropriate, and I'm fully supportive of it.
Are there any other comments?
Yeah.
I personally am not supportive of it, only because, first of all, opening Montera into Silverado is going to create so much more traffic with townhomes that we're looking at additional 300 cars coming through our subdivision, that we already have speeding that is an issue. We have people that are not stopping at stop signs that are already an issue. And this is just going to create more of that in our subdivision. And I don't think that is worth it. Although I do agree that, yes, we do need more townhomes in the city of Kyle, but I don't feel that this is a place for them.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion first, and then I'd like to speak.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 6B as written.
I have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes. Okay. So I also received emails about this as well from residents. And first I have to say thank you to the residents that reached out. It is very encouraging to see our residents speaking up with their concerns. And they were all related to traffic. Traffic was the main question. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I tried my best to research R1, and I had a hard time finding anything. Who will explain why? It's not a current zone we use, right. But there is parts of Kyle still listed that. And if Will's correct, if it's 6 units per buildable acre in R1, that's already pretty dense. That is denser than R11, R12, or R13. And so the question in my mind is should it be allowable to go from R1 to R1T? That's going to add 4 possible units per buildable acre, going from 6 to 10. On a 14-acre plot, I mean, max from 6 to 10, that's 4 times 14 is 56. So would 56 units make the difference? And hey, Will, can you actually go back to what you were sharing? Can you go back to the current zoning map on that screen? Thank you. Yes. So, I mean, it appears whatever is built there is going to connect both to Live Oak and to the Silverado subdivision. There's a road that kind of goes in there. And so whether it's R1 or it's R1T, there will be an issue with traffic. Us denying R1T, if R1 is built there instead, it's still going to have a traffic issue. We are not alleviating the traffic issue by making them build R1. All we're doing is saying that we can't have townhomes in this area. And I think there already is quite a bit of R1. I do think Kyle needs more options for people to live here, different types of options as far as the kind of home they'd like. So I am definitely in support of having R1T in this area. I do understand the concern. I do see that there is going to be an issue, but I think that issue exists. If we force them to be R1 or if we allow them to be R1T, there is still the issue with traffic. But I think there is a benefit to R1T in allowing a additional kind of home for our residents to choose from. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Was the applicant available to discuss the zoning change?
Is the applicant here? I don't see.
I believe so.
Is he?
Amar, the gentleman, the first name of Amar, I believe, is the agent on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Mr. Atkinson. Yes, I'm here.
Does anyone have questions for the applicant?
I was just curious if you had any preliminary site plans that you'd kicked around. No.
We have the site plan based on the single family zoning. So we would probably keep the similar site plan if it gets approved and just add a few more lots to it.
I'm gonna go ahead and caution the planning commission now to not get into design metrics and site plans and try and keep this at a higher level that's more related to just the land use.
Yes, I wanted to see what the roads look like inside or what the thoughts were. I don't care about the lots per se. And I know Will kind of talked about it, but do we have any kind of rendering showing what the
We're just looking at the zoning right now, Commissioner. We're not looking at any layouts or plans, or we're just strictly looking at the zoning.
I was kind of looking for some help developing a warm fuzzy. Okay.
I understand. I can relate. I get it.
I think that the infrastructure improvements and all the improvements that come along with the zoning change can give you the warm fuzzy.
I think the wastewater improvement.
And the wastewater and all
everybody a warm fuzzy down there.
Well,
that area.
When I look at this, I see the potential to actually improve the traffic that goes through that area because St. Anthony Drive might be able to be connected to this. And these guys might end up becoming the place that everybody drives through actually instead. So I was just curious if there was anything about that. But no, okay, fine. We're just considering zoning. All right.
Just zoning.
Fine.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. Item 6C. Consider a request by Estate of Evelyn Franke et al. Z210074 to assign original zoning to approximately 12.9 acres of land from agricultural AG to Mixed Use District MXD for property located at the northeast corner of Philomena Drive and Bunton Creek Road in Hays County, Texas. There is a public hearing for this item. I will open the public hearing for this item. Is anyone on the line to speak to this item? Anyone?
Yeah, this is Evan Voigt and Teresa Boyer. We're working for the agents with the request.
Okay.
And we're available for any questions or requests from the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Voigt. Anyone else here? Any citizens to speak to this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Atkinson.
All right, we have our last zoning case of the evening. It's a Z-21-0074 at the northeast corner of Philomena Drive and Bunton Creek Road, about a little less than 13 acres, currently zoned ag, but they're requesting to rezone it to vertical mixed use, or MXD. To the north, northeast, you have Seton Hospital zoned HS. Across Stacy Lane, you have a lot of various uses, but some of them RS, some of them warehouse, some of them CM. It's kind of an industrial feel to it. And a little bit to the south of Bunton Creek Road with some R1 zoning behind it. And then across Philomena, to the northwest, it's zoned ag right now. It's vacant. And then you have Warm Springs and BioLife, and there's a little bit of retail due north. So you got significant street infrastructure on all four sides. And here's the zoning map for y'all to see. Okay. Existing zoning is agriculture. As one might expect, you're allowed to have farming, ranching, pasturage, a detached single family residence per lot. Also public parks, playgrounds, green belts, and etc. The MXD zoning district is intentionally designed for a higher intensity of use in an urban district. You're looking at a building where you commercial on the ground floor, even more if you want on the second or third floor, but with residential intentionally above it. Everything's consolidated in one building. You're looking at something that's very much a downtown urban feel. It's supposed to be walkable. You're supposed to be able to park and get out once and walk around and enjoy the shops. You can live above where you want to go eat at a restaurant, what have you. Right here is the super regional node. From the land use district standpoint, it's entirely in the super regional node, which is not a surprise. And it's recommended, the MXD zoning district. The whole intent of the super regional node is to attract people from a super regional aspect, from South Austin, North San Marcos, East and West, to bring them to the entire this intersection of I-35 and 1626. This is a little bit to the southeast of that slightly, but this whole area as a magnet to draw people to it, to provide diverse services from a retail standpoint, hospital standpoint, offices, high density multifamily, just an assortment of stuff. The hours are supposed to be longer for these businesses to stay open, and it follows that. We have HEB, we have the hospital, we have Target, Walmart, Lowe's, a lot of the scattering of the smaller businesses inside of it. We're starting to get some multifamily in here as well. And now, as we have all been hoping for, they're asking for MXD on this site. Like I said before, it's supposed to be a pedestrian friendly shopping experience, commercial on the ground floor, residential on floors 2 and above. They have streets on all 4 sides of this project. It's going to be what's as close as you can to a standard city block. It's almost square, not quite. All the streets are in excellent condition. They have all been recently built within this decade. Some of them like 2 years ago. The water's there, the wastewater's there. This site can support a very high density and intensity of use. So staff absolutely recommends it. We don't have issues with it. We're ready for them to move forward, assuming everybody's on board with it. And we recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission vote to recommend it as well. Do y'all have any questions?
Anybody have a question for Mr. Atkinson? Seeing no questions, I'll take a motion. Anybody, somebody?
I move to approve item 6C as written.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and multiple seconds. Is there any discussion?
I hate to steal Paul's question, but I'm curious of the same thing he usually asks, which is there a specific like use in mind?
I can't ask. This is a zoning
Okay.
issue.
Yeah.
It says mixed
Okay.
use. We can't ask. We're
We all-
only to look at the zoning.
I think we
That's
all
fine.
love it. We just want a sneak peek. We're very curious. But
Okay. I get it. I get it.
gotta wait till Christmas. Okay.
I know. Anyone else have a legal question? Let me put it that way. No discussion? Okay, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a mixed use. Woo, woo. Okay. General discussion, item 7. Discussion only regarding Planning and Zoning Commission request for future agenda items. Here we go. Anybody? Anything wandering around that little head of yours you'd like to see us discuss later on?
Little.
I have some ideas, but I want to let you guys go first. No, eh? See, everybody's on mute. There you go. Okay, my first item is, remember that big red building that's on the corner downtown? Okay, Jack Sax's or whatever it is. All right. I've been on social media of late, and I've noticed that quite a few people are bringing it up again, like when it was first brought up. Some of the groups are, did you see that red building? Now, I vaguely remember someone saying that there was a loophole or something in the ordinance that allowed that to happen. My question or suggestion is that we maybe look for that loophole and see how we can fix it so we don't have another big red building on Center Street. Any ideas?
I have, I'm glad you brought that up because I think about that often, especially in terms,
when you go by it.
I really do. Yes. Sorry, Howard. But
No, hey, I'm right there with you.
from a material sort of like, we don't have very many like older buildings downtown. And I believe that was actually limestone. And so just even from a historic or a material conservation point of view, I think just putting a coating like paint on it without any sort of treatment or like study to it should not be happening. Yeah, and especially in such a prominent area, there's no sort of review. I know we've talked about this before, and there was it doesn't come before the planning department or the planning commission or city council, anyone to review sort of aesthetically or from a material standpoint. So yes, I do.
So maybe we should look into that. Mr. Coons, can you arrange that?
As you know, the last line of defense for the city and for the aesthetics and for architecture in the city of Kyle, you know, the planning department had collective, just heart-wrenching pain, realizing that there was nothing we could do to stop somebody from their own bad judgment. I think, you know, painting brick is just don't, but stone, you know, painting masonry like that, I think is the same way. We, it's not so much a loophole in that it's just a function of a certain conjunction in a single sentence. We poured through it several times, trying to make sure that there wasn't anything we could do. And several times we went through it. Several people looked at it independent of one another. We all came to the same conclusion that it was I don't remember off the top of my head because it's been close to a year or more now, but it was the difference between the word and the word or in a sentence, and changing one to the other would have created the opportunity for greater oversight than none. So yes, we can do that. It would be, I assume we're initiating a text amendment So that's probably the greatest way to facilitate the conversation is just with the change. Putting an ad in the paper, today's the 23rd. I don't know if we've got time to get it on the agenda prior to Tuesday, the 13th of April. And if we don't, the next voting meeting where we could hear it would be May the 11th. So pencil that in on your schedule that we can talk about that text amendment May the 11th and just fingers crossed that we don't come out with the next crayon color on the next.
Hey, a question too regarding that building, just the logo work and the lettering on the side, is that considered to be a sign, and does it have to comply with a sign ordinance in terms of height and all that stuff?
Almost every thing can be classified as a sign in our sign ordinance. Anything that is made to convey a message through pictographs or text or numbers or a rebus, anything like that is a sign. So my short answer would be that yes, I believe it would be.
And did that consideration that you looked at everything, so that was probably part of everything?
I recall specifically looking at the aesthetics and trying to find out the relationship between our Center Street overlay and the expectation that it go to PNC for the conditional approval. I don't recall looking at sign issues, but I can talk to the guy. They're right next door here in City Hall.
The letters look kind of big, is all I'm saying.
We'll look into it.
I saw you out there with a measuring implement trying to get the size of them. I saw you. You saw it. I didn't see you, but I was passing by. Okay. Now I have another item. I have a total of 3, just so you know. The second item is, when are we going to get to meet in person?
So, good question. We had a little bit of discussion about that. What's today? Tuesday? Oh, it's been a long week already in 2 days. It was just yesterday morning. We had our department head meeting. And we talked a little bit about that, and as the idea that more and more adults are able to qualify for vaccination. Saw the report that all adults in Texas will be eligible following Monday, March the 29th. So that's a week from yesterday. That all the adults in Texas should be able to make an appointment somewhere and get themselves a vaccination. So as more and more people are able to do that, if we can still maintain the appropriate COVID decorum and the protocols for distances and masks and separation from one another, is the idea, is the likelihood that City Hall is going to open back up. Meetings will be more in person, less virtual, fewer hybrid. It's a discussion that needs to be had. At this point, the discussions are being had at least internally, department by department. And it's really a function of the working space for all the departments and their ability to maintain those protocols. Similarly, it will be the same discussion for you. You all are effectively the department. You are the operators of that space, which is, the council chambers, 2 nights a month. So this is really something that you need to talk about amongst yourselves and your level of comfort in being able to participate in those meetings in person, or if you prefer hybrid, or if you would prefer them maintain virtual. What say you?
Commissioners, I'm not going to spill first.
I think we'll end tonight, but because we're on the agenda, I think we'll probably, we'll talk about it tonight, but I think any decision that we make, I don't know it necessarily needs to be a vote. So we can probably talk about this at our meeting on April 13th, Tuesday the 13th. It'll be on the agenda for the 13th, and we can come up with a decision then. But by all means, what are your initial thoughts?
Alex?
Yeah, I don't see the drawback of doing a hybrid meeting. It will, one, allow some people to meet and some people to not. It will allow people that want to give citizen comments in person, or people that want to do it over the phone. I don't see the drawback to it. So I think I am fully supportive of moving to a hybrid meeting.
I've gotten all my vaccinations, so I'm for coming in. We could do hybrid. My own thought on it is when we sit down to start doing our workshop on the CBD1, CBD2, for me, I would prefer we were all around a big, huge table, throwing things out and discussing things. This is a little crazy for me. I don't know. I just think we should all be together to, as many of us as we can, to do that and have a hybrid of this also. But I'm ready to jump in.
I'm ready to be back too, but I think that having a hybrid option might be the best at this point, just because of everything going on. And then, with the citizens' comments, that if people want to be at home, then they can call in, or if one of us wants or needs to be at home. But I want to come back and see people in person.
Yeah, I like it too for the citizens' comments, as you said, having people come in if they want. I like to go back to that. I like to see people eyeball to eyeball when they're talking to us. Anybody else? Well, we're going to, what, you're going to put it on for the next meeting, Howard?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's not a voting issue, but it is something that probably should be on the agenda. And I want everybody to give the opportunity to get comfortable with any information that you want to have as a backup. And we're not that far away. We're only, I go again, 3 weeks from tonight will be our next meeting, which will be we'll back to the regular schedule, the voting schedule. So it'll be a regular voting meeting in April.
Okay.
I don't see any problem with this going hybrid. Like, I don't know why that's not kind of a normalcy almost. Like,
I don't
the council
know
does
all the
it.
rules, and I'm probably going to dig into that a little bit myself. I want to find out. I know that the rules were amended, suspended, altered or whatever by the governor's office, executive order of the governor's office. In fact, we make note of it on the top of all of our agendas that say that pursuant to an order from last year, we were allowed to amend the rules of Texas local government and have meetings virtually where people didn't need to be present. It was my understanding that prior to that, there was no provision that allowed for any type of virtual participation. So you needed to have an in-person quorum at a place that was advertised as open for all participants, which is where the usual language came from. I'm going to find out what and TML. I don't know if you guys are aware of the Texas Municipal League, but TML is great about not only sending emails to their members, but making all that information available to folks if you want to research it on the latest of what's coming out of the governor's office, what's coming out of Austin that affects the state, specifically that affects municipal governments. And I'm going to read through and find out where they are with extending that provision, extending that courtesy, because I just want to be ahead of this to the point where we can make a decision for ourselves before what I think is going to happen is eventually the state's going to prescribe what we can and can't do. So that's part of the discussion that I want to have, is what the rules are normally, what the rules are currently, and then what we're doing and how we relate to those other two committees.
Okay. All right, I have one more item that I want to bring up, and that is a message from Councilmember Ellison. Councilmember Ellison spoke with me concerning the CBD1 and CBD2 task that the City Council gave us. And he made it very clear to me that what the council is asking us to do is not, I'm going to say it again because he said it to me, not look at downtown area and where, quote, downtown is for revitalization. We are to look at CBD1 and CBD2 solely, the uses in it, one by one. He said he knows it's a tedious task, but that is what the council wants us to do. to look at each and every usage and decide yay, nay, and what we might add and what we might take away. And then present it to the citizens and then present it to the city council. He made mention of buckets, about we could put our ideas in one bucket and put the citizens' ideas in another bucket, and then come to some kind of consensus after that and present it to the city council as, here is what we've come up with, but we came up with this from this list and this list, ours and the citizens. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm just relating what was told to me by the council member.
Can I ask the messenger a question?
Sure.
Why do we even have two CBD classifications if it isn't something based on geography?
No, listen. You're not hearing me, man. You're not hearing me.
Okay. I'm not listening well.
Yeah, don't get caught in the weeds there, boy. Here's the deal. We have zoning that's called CBD1 and CBD2. We are not to question that zoning. We are not to look at that zoning and say, why is it here and it isn't there? We're not to do that. All we are to do is look at CBD1, CBD2 uses. Do we feel this usage A, is good for CBD1?
I got to have more to go then on than that. Though, what's the quality of a CBD1 area and what's the quality of a CBD2 area? Do we have any definition of that?
I understand what you're saying, but that's not the task at hand.
I think
there's other issues. We could bring that issue to Council Member Ellison. If you have questions, you want more clarity, we could ask him for more clarity, I guess. But he has to relate this to all the commissioners. He felt we were getting lost in the weeds and making this bigger than it should be. All they want us to do is look at it and say, okay, this is CBD1. You look on the map, CBD1. All right, in this area, is it a good place for blah? Yes or no? That's all we're to do. Not why it was named CBD1, not why it was named CBD2, how they come up with the uses for each area. We're not to look at that. Is this a good place for CBD1 or CBD2? Nope, don't look at that either. Just look at the uses and weed them out. That's all they want us to do. And again, I'll say, he said he knew it was a tedious task. He did not want it rushed. He wants it done well, so we can take our time. Again, no arrows for the messenger, please. That's it. Paul's biting it. Does anybody else have any other suggestions? I'm the only one tonight, eh? That's it for me for the year. There'll be no more.
I have a question, sort of going and just not to be too worried about the same area, but in terms of like maintaining property, I guess on Center Street or more popular areas, like businesses that have awnings that are falling apart or just like need general maintenance, like at your house you have an HOA who says like, hey, you have to mow your lawn. Like who does that? Is that you do that?
No, I just wanted to.
Okay. That's just another thing that you do.
Yes, sorta. Okay. Follow me here. It's really prescient that you bring this up right now because, again, what is today? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So I had a conversation that started sometime the week of the 8th, so about 2 weeks ago. And it was with the gentleman's name is Duarte, and he is the new code compliance officer working in the PD for the city of Kyle. Who currently or was our code compliance officer, I believe, until last Friday. He's left the city, he's gone to a different agency. So now we've got a new guy. And the police captain, Captain Hernandez, and the outgoing code compliance officer, the incoming code compliance officer, and the city manager took a tour of our downtown and had pointed out some issues on certain sections of certain blocks that needed to be addressed, just from an aesthetic and a quality of life initiative standpoint. And code compliance took copious notes, took a lot of photos, and then started digging into enforcement. And the reason I was brought into the conversation is because there are certain passages in our city code that read that enforcement of certain deficiencies in the city are the responsibility of the building official. I won't go into details about the history of that, enforcement as a function of the building official, but I am serving as the interim temporary building official since our last building official retired last Halloween. We are working on getting a new one to come in and work full time. But in the interim, that would be a responsibility of the building official to go out, identify these deficiencies, and make it the responsibility of the owner or the operator of that deficiency to fix it. So the short answer to that backstory is that, number one, thanks for noticing, because you're not the first one. I have as well noticed some issues with maintaining what Kyle has rather than worrying so much about getting new. But it's being addressed. It's being addressed slowly. We've got a small staff, but it's a good start. And we've got some other projects that are kicking off in our downtown that are capital projects, and they are really a pride for the city government to be able to bring some more quality of life initiatives to the downtown, and one of which will be that cleanup effort. So that will be ongoing. It's a reasonably new initiative for 2021. So stay tuned, and you'll see some good stuff happen.
Thank you. That was all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, item number 8, our staff report. Staff report by Howard J. Coombs, Director of Planning and Community Development. Mr. Coombs.
We're going to hire a building official. It doesn't have anything to do with any of you guys, but what it does is free up about 60% of my cerebral capital that I can actually start concentrating on you guys again the way that you deserve. So it's going to be great that that's going to be able to run and fly and do all the other stuff on its own, and I can get back to this. The best I can offer you right now is just a little bit more talk about schedule. So apologize for March. Storm in February kind of made some advertising irregularities, and we couldn't get stuff done in time. So we flipped a couple dates, and we made this into the voting meeting and that into the earlier one into the work session. We're going to go back to our normal schedule in April. So we've got a regular voting meeting on Tuesday the 13th at 6:30 right here. And then we will have our work session on April the 27th at 6:30. By the 27th, I would like to continue the discussion, if at all possible, about the CBD1, which is the lower intensity category of Central Business District, and CBD2, the higher intensity category. So I would hope you guys are going to get together in your smaller little breakdown groups and talk about that a little bit before we come back to it on the 27th. Additionally, at the 27th, because it's been a while, and all of it, but I'm just going to take a little bit. A lot of that is my fault. I'm going to bring back a really good and comprehensive summary of all the future land use map amendment stuff that we talked about back in October and November, and pick that up again off the table, because my expectation is to start the public process working with communications and the P&Z Commission, and to a lesser extent staff, and seeing what we can do about getting that in front of folks in more than just a standard public hearing process, to talk about the changes that we want to make to that map, including expanding it. Coincidentally, we will have a couple of minor, I'll call them minor applications, because they're just parcel by parcel, minor applications for future land use map amendments or few comprehensive plan text amendments that will facilitate a couple of uses that we've got some clients that are waiting in the wing for the future land project to finish. That's not going to finish on their schedule, so we're going to go ahead and move them along separately. Expect to see that in April. And I think that's all I got. I think that's as far as I've thought is the end of April. Can anybody think of anything that's coming up that might inhibit the ability for us to have a meeting, with the full group? Okay.
Yeah. That's it? You're done? Okay. Item number 9, adjournment. Hello? I need a motion.
Paul can't talk. He bit his tongue too hard earlier.
Is this?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn in a second. Is there any discussion? No? Good. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. We're out of here. It was so much fun. Thank you all for showing up. Bye.